Hello, test check 1, 2. How's it sounding out there? Testing, testing. I think it sounds pretty okay. Let's get this thing going. All right. Hello and welcome to another Wednesday afternoon song feedback stream. What's up, Jason? How you doing today? So yeah, this is what we do here on Wednesdays. You guys are going to send me your tracks, and I'm going to listen to them and give you my honest feedback on whatever it is you send me, as well as other people in chat are also going to give you their honest feedback on whatever it is you send in. So the way this works, for those of you guys who are new around here, is pinned up at the top of the chat is a link to a Google Doc, a little spreadsheet, and you're going to click on that link. It'll take you to a spreadsheet, and inside the spreadsheet, you're going to put in the URL of wherever I can stream your song. So this could be like a private SoundCloud link, Google Drive are the two most popular ways people do it. Whatever way, as long as I can just hit play and the song plays, fantastic. That's what we're doing. And then I will kind of go through those in the order that I receive them. And like I said, we're going to listen to them and we're going to talk about them. And hopefully we're all going to learn and grow together as a community here. Before we dive into the tracks, a couple things I like to do at the start of all of these streams is, number one, go over the kind of the guidelines and things. Oh, what's up, Janef? How you been? I'm doing pretty well myself, but it's good to see you back here. I was kind of wondering where you'd been recently. So first off, ideally original tracks only, so no remixes or anything like that. Mostly just because the YouTube algorithm for copyright is very, very strict, and so even if you're remixing somebody else's track, I can get copyright notices for it, and I would rather avoid that. Also, kind of along the same lines, ideally works in progress. I've had people send me in tracks that they've released that are up on either YouTube or Spotify or whatever, and then I get copyright strikes for those too. Plus, if you've already finished and released the track, odds are you're not going to go back and change it. So I prefer original music and unreleased music. However, if you don't have anything unreleased that you're still working on and you have something you released recently, that's also totally fine. It's not a huge deal. Oh yeah, other than that, all skill levels, all experience levels, brand new beginners, your first track, or this is your 100th track, doesn't matter. All of those things are welcome here, as well as all genres and styles. So I like all kinds of music, and chat likes all kinds of music. So bring in whatever you're excited about is whatever we'll be excited about as well. Songs will be reviewed in a first come, first serve basis. So if you get your track in there in the list early, I will listen to it earlier in the stream. If you have more than one song that you're sending in, please wait until the end of the stream to send me the second song, just because I want to make sure I have time to get through everybody. Usually I do, but that way it just makes my life easier than trying to organize and try to figure out who's sending multiple tracks and who hasn't and all that kind of stuff. What's up, Daniel? How are you doing today? One song at a time. And then this video, like all of the other streams, is going to be posted to the channel. So they're not in the main videos page, they're on the playlist page. There's a playlist for all of the live streams. So if you ever want to go back and review any of the feedback you received, you're more welcome to do that. On top of that, if you can't make it on a Wednesday, say you're busy, you got stuff to do, that's totally fine. I use the same spreadsheet every week, so you can just put your track in and then it'll just stay there. And then when I get to the stream, it'll already be in there. So you can upload songs or you can send me songs early to get earlier on the list. And even if you can't make it live, you can always come in and listen or watch the stream later on. Oh, and the other thing I forgot to mention is if you're submitting a song for feedback, it is not required, but it is highly encouraged that you give other people feedback as well. And that way we can all, learn from each other and kind of, teach each other things, and give each other our opinions, which is fantastic. Way to grow as a community. And then lastly, all the feedback that I give out here is free. I do this for fun because I enjoy it. I like doing it. However, if you would like to support the channel, you can hit the like button. You can subscribe if you're not already. Any of that kind of stuff, go watch all my videos, tell all your friends, post about it on social media. Any of that stuff is all greatly appreciated. If you want to help support the channel financially, you can do super chats in the YouTube chat, which is cool. You can also check out the Patreon, and that's another great way to help keep the channel going. But yeah, I think that is all of the pregame stuff. Jay, how you doing? So I think we can go ahead and dive into it. We already got a couple tracks in here. So yeah, go ahead and start with a track from Jason. All right, pulling this up here. And let me check real quick what he said in the notes. Cool. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. And as always with the first song of the day, I'm gonna do a little sound check, so let me know if it sounds too quiet, too loud. I'll be like fixing it as the song is playing. It's a bit loud. It's a bit quiet on my end. I might tweak some things a little bit then. Turn it down here a little bit and then turn it up here. Jay, you can definitely sample it from anywhere. I'll talk about that in a moment after the song. Nice. I think it sounds really awesome, Jason. Um, I think I would probably call this like some kind of chill version of house music. I would call it like sunrise house is kind of what I call this music, or this style of music. But I don't know if there's a more specific common name people use for it. Overall, I love it. The beat sounds great. The percussion sounds awesome. The synth work sounds really good. Really cool vibe. Super chill. Really digging it. I think I agree with what Jay was saying in the chat, and this is something I've said, I think, more than once about some of your tracks. Intro just felt a little bit long. It felt like, the delivery is about a minute and a half in, and it's really good, but there's a lot of just what feels like kind of like filler during that intro. So if it were up to me, I would tighten that up. I know you like the longer intros. If that's a stylistic choice you're into, keep it. But for me, I think a little bit tighter on the intro could be great. And then during like the main kind of beat sections, I think it sounds fantastic. I do feel like your main kind of like plucky synth that speeds up and slows down could be a little bit clearer in the mix, like a little more present in the mix. So just turn up the volume on that a little bit. And you might need to tone down some of the reverbs and delays a little bit because they are taking up a bunch of space in kind of the background of the mix here. But I love the use of the reverbs and delays. I think they sound good. Yeah, I think a lot of times for the style of music, having longer intros for mixing is helpful, but this is a very long intro in my opinion. Like a lot of the mixing that I do for the music I DJ is much shorter than that. But if you are going to be doing like a longer kind of houseier set, I think it helps to have a long intro, but you still don't want to be too long. So up to you. I think there's a sweet spot in the middle there. But like I said, that just might be my personal choice when it comes to building and putting together intros. I'm also super guilty of like making really long intros that like need to be cut down. But yeah. I like that kind of snapping sound you're using in there. I kind of want you to maybe layer it up with another sound too, like maybe layer up with a clap that's really quiet just to give it a little bit more texture. Right now it feels like it sticks out a little bit. It's a cool sound now. Yeah, use of delay is really cool here. But there's definitely some lingering reverbs in there that I think you could tone down a tiny bit. Break section here is cool. I like the strings. Everything here sounds great. And then I kind of want this section to feel a little bit more different from this section here. And I think the main place I would probably look into that is the bass sound. I think the bass is cool as a kind of like background kind of sound. Like it's kind of just like kind of bass sound. But by the time we get here, I think I'm ready for something a little bit different from the bass. So that's probably what I look into in this kind of final section here. But I think it sounds cool and it's working for me. And then I felt like your outro felt a little bit awkward. It feels like the plucky synth kind of slows down in a weird way. Like it just slows down. And then just kind of disappears and we get one more. And then I just feel like the outro to me is not quite doing it. So I think partially the transition from your main section into your outro and partially just the outro just feels like it's kind of there. So a little bit more love on the outro and I think you'll be good to go. But yeah, those are kind of my main things here. I think everything else works really well. If you wanted to put another layer of ear candy in this last section here, like another cool little like high-pitched kind of synth sound, I wouldn't mind that, but I don't think it's totally necessary. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking of this track. I really like it. I'm really digging the vibe you got going on here. Chat, you got any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas, opinions? Feel free to let us know. On top of that, if you are just joining us and you would like to send in a track, you can click on the link that is pinned up at the top of the chat, and that's how you send me your tracks. And then, so Jay was asking, is there a way to sample audio from YouTube or TikTok so you can get into a song? Yeah, there are lots of different ways to do that. The way I like to do it the most is by using like a virtual audio cable program. I actually made a video about this for the channel a few months ago. So if you just scroll back on the channel, I think it was about 5 months ago, I made one about a software called Black Hole that basically allows you to route audio from one place on your computer to another place. So essentially you could route audio out of your browser into live, record whatever you want. The legality of it is going to vary a lot depending on the situation and what you're sampling. Generally, no. I mean, it's legal to do it. It's legal to just take audio from one place and record it to another place. That's not illegal. It's illegal to sell it and make money off of it, provided that most things that you would be sampling like that are copyrighted. If it's something that's not copyrighted, which those things do exist, but you do have to look into it and figure it out, then if it's under like a Creative Commons license or whatever, then oftentimes you can just use it. But if it's something that you're like sampling from somebody's TikTok or from somebody's YouTube, they, 99% chance they own the rights to it, which means you can put it in your song, but you can't sell that song and you can't make any money off of that song. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not gonna give you any legal advice about what you can and can't do. But just know that if you're ripping something off of a source like YouTube, the person who most likely created that content has the creative license to that. And if you start making money off of it, they can definitely sue you. Yeah, so Skrillex or literally any hip hop producer over the last 40 years, if you hear a sample from a movie or you hear a sample from somebody else's song, somebody's getting paid for that. Usually there will be some kind of licensing agreement where the owner of the original copyright will own X percentage of the profits or whatever, or sometimes it's a flat fee. It really kind of depends. But yeah, most likely if somebody's making, selling, and releasing music, mostly if they're selling it, then they have licensed it, or they've got permission from whoever owns the license. So Janef, it may vary from country to country and depending on the copyright laws, but I know for a fact in America, no amount of processing to a sample gives you the copyright to that sample. So if you sampled something off YouTube and then you just threw like 80 effects on it and turned it into something totally different, even if it's not recognizable as the original sample, I'm pretty sure legally they could go after you. Who knows if they would, because nobody will know where that sample came from. But and at least in terms of legality in America, that's how that works. That's oftentimes why a lot of remixes, when somebody is like, oh, I made a really cool bootleg remix, they release it for free on SoundCloud. They don't put that up on Spotify or someplace where they can make money off of it. Because if you're not making money off of it, nobody really cares. But the second you see a penny from it, somebody's going to want, some of that penny, because you're using their content. Copyright stuff is wild. Daniel, the track you sent me did not show up here, so most likely you just sent me the URL as opposed to the private link. So try sending me the private link. Yeah, you're right, Daniel. There is fair use copyright. I know for a fact on YouTube that's also kind of sketchy because people will copyright strike you for, if somebody's doing a film critique and you use too much audio from the actual film, they'll copyright strike you for it, which is wild. But for the most part, if you're just sampling something and making a song, it's not necessarily educational or critical. That's more for like if you're making a video essay about a piece of music, or you are, making a critique of a film. Okay, cool. All right, so I got this link. Should be working. Also, once again, if anybody wants to send me a track, you can click on the link pinned at the top of the chat. That'll take you to the spreadsheet. That's how you send me your song.
How shall I begin? How shall I begin my story?
Nice, Daniel. I'm really digging this. This sounds really good. This may be one of the best songs that I've heard from you so far. And I feel like I heard an earlier version of this a while back, and I feel like it's made a lot of progress, and I'm really digging it. So I'm gonna let you know straight off the bat that pretty much all the feedback that I have is gonna be fairly subtle. It's gonna be like pretty detail-oriented stuff. Because I think overall, vibe-wise, fantastic. I think the use of the vocal sample sounds really good. The processing of the vocal sample makes it fit in really nicely. The guitar sounds really cool. The drums work really well with the other parts. Like everything is like pretty spot on. In terms of the things that you might want to take a look at, I do feel like the intro is a little too quiet. Like coming in here, this could be a lot more powerful and impactful, because you kind of like, I kind of turn up a little bit at the beginning and then turn it back down once the actual main part comes in.
How shall I begin?
I also wonder if you don't need those first couple kicks. Wait until after the vocal sample to bring the kicks in. Maybe, maybe not. Try it out.
How shall I begin?
This part sounds dope. can dial the reverb back on the snare clappy sound a little bit. And I think, honestly, one of my biggest criticisms here is I feel like the bass feels a little bit overpowering in the mix a little bit. I like the sound of it. I like the use of the bass, but it just feels like it's grabbing my attention a little bit more than I generally would in this style of music. I think if you wanted to lean heavier into the electronic music side of things, you could keep it where it is. But this to me has a much more kind of organic band kind of feel. It reminds me of like a little bit of like a darker, less EDM version of Beats Antique almost, which is really cool. Yeah, this part's great. I like the rolling snare.
That has no beginning.
And the electric piano. Yeah, that bass just feels a little bit overpowering. Like, you want the bass to be heard, but just barely. And right now, it's just like it's distracting me a bit from the guitar part. I think a little bit more volume on the guitar solo could be cool. Not totally 100% necessary, but I think it would help give the whole track a little bit more of that like raw power kind of feel. I think maybe some hi-hats coming in here to help kind of spice up the groove a little bit could be really nice. This part's cool. And then I think my only other real kind of feedback is let this last section play out for a little bit longer before you start doing the fade out. I feel like I'm really kind of digging this as a final section, and it doesn't last long enough for me to get super into it. Yeah, I would let it loop another time, like that whole section, loop one more time, and then do a fade out as opposed to just fading out during the second time it loops. But yeah, super cool. Really digging the vibe. It's like it lives in like this nice in-between zone between lots of different styles and genres, which I super dig, while also kind of like standing on its own as its own thing. So yeah, I'm definitely feeling it. Chat, what do you guys think? Questions, comments, ideas? You guys have been slacking a little bit on the giving other people feedback side of things. So let me hear what do you think about this track? And, you know, again, feedback doesn't have to be super technical. It can be like, I really liked this thing, or I didn't like this thing. Or the thing I always recommend for people when you're giving people feedback is to think about, if this is your track, what do you do next? Like, what do you add? Do you take something out, or do you change something? That's a great way to kind of appreciate, to like focus on kind of how to help somebody else out when they're looking for feedback. Sweet. So, oh, hold on. We have the next track. This is a track from Genef, it looks like. Yeah, public domain, you know, if we're talking about samples, is fantastic. And it's harder and harder to find things in public domain because they keep extending it. But you can find like old films that exist in the public domain, and then you can sample those as much as you want. And nobody cares because it's public domain now. Sweet. So yeah, track from Genef. Good to have you back, Genef. It's been a while. Also, once again, I'm going to trying to get in the habit of doing this between each song, but if you would like to send a track, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat, and that's how you send me your song.
Wherever you're searching, itakupata. Unapolia, nitakufariji. Whenever you're hiding, itakupata. Whenever you're hurting, itakufariji. Wherever you are, mbali au karibu, ngoya kwani musi wakue. Wherever you are, mbali au karibu, I'll follow my star to find you, to be where you are. Na, 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 na. Forever together, wapenzi milele. You will see it. Forever together, wapenzi milele. You will see it. Wapenzi milele. Take a love tomorrow. Yeah. Let together. Oh, 'cause I'ma treat you better. I wanna be your one. Say my name out loud. I wanna be your star. Toka divas, yanakuma. Wherever you are, mbali au karibu, I'll follow my star to find you. Forever together, wapenzi milele. You will see it. Forever together, wapenzi milele. You will see it. Forever together, wapenzi milele.
Nice. That sounds awesome. How do we get back here? There you go. Yeah, sounds really good, Janef. Before we get into this, people are asking about public domain stuff. So if you want to find stuff in the public domain, I think you can probably just Google, films in public domain, and it'll probably, I'm sure there's lists of films and other creative content that's in public domain. I know a lot of films from other countries, and I think a lot of like old Bollywood films, for example, are in public domain, so you can sample those as much as you want. And it might be 100 years now. I know for a long time it was 70 years, and then Disney and other big companies who have things like Mickey Mouse in public domain and are worried about something like that going into public domain, they keep on lobbying to change it. So don't expect most types of content in the last 50 years or so to be in public domain. Usually you're looking at things that have kind of like either the company that owned the rights to it either went out of business or just forgot about it. So films from like the 40s, 50s, maybe even 60s, where just nobody really cared anymore to renew the license on it. Those might be in public domain. But they keep on changing it, which is, it's supposed to help protect artists, but really it just protects corporations these days. That's really all kind of copyright is there for. So overall, this track, I'm digging it. The vocals sound really clean. The instrumental also is working pretty well. I think they both work well together. They fit nicely and create this, like the vocals and the instrumental complement each other, which is really nice. I feel like there's a few kind of minor tweaks here I might take a look at if this is my track. I know this is already kind of done and released, so you might not go back into it. But I figure we'll talk about those anyway. So first off, I feel like on the instrumental, the reverb is a little bit heavy on some of the guitar sounds. And I think if you dialed it back a tiny bit, it would clear up a little bit more space in your mix, which would be helpful, I think. The beat sounds really good, but the snare is, to me, sounds like the generic 808 snare, which is a fantastic sounding snare. but it does just sound a little bit generic. So if it were up to me, I would maybe process the snare or layer it a little bit, just to give it a little more texture, a little bit more of like a unique feel. But other than that, the beat sounds great. I think overall the vocal processing sounds fantastic. I think the vocals sound really crisp and really clear. If you wanted to make them a little bit louder and or compress them a little bit more in the just to bring them out a little bit, I think that'd be fantastic because the vocals are so nice. Yeah, I know that the kind of the 808 snare kind of like is iconic for this, but I think you can still process it a little bit and still get that classic 808 snare, but also make it yours a little bit. I think that is really it's a really nice thing to do, help kind of like make your track stand out a little bit.
Whenever you're hiding, whenever you're hiding,
I think that's basically it. Everything else is like, it sounds really good. Your vocalist is fantastic. Oh, and then there's this stabby synth guy. This is one of the only sounds I wasn't really sure of. So the synth sound. It's not that it's bad. I actually like what it's doing, but I also think a little bit of love on the sound design on that stabby synth part could be really helpful. But yeah, that's basically it. It's like a couple really minor things. I think overall it sounds really crisp and it sounds really clean. And I think, I think for a lot of the stuff you've been making, Jeff, I think this is like a really good example of kind of like the culmination of the sound and the development of your style. So yeah, really solid work. Fantastic work with the vocalist. I don't know if you are planning on working with the vocalist more, but you guys should definitely work more together because I think that it's the two work together really, really well. But yeah, that's kind of one thing about this track. I think that like everything else sounds really solid. Yeah, sounding really good. Chat, what do you think? Questions, comments, ideas? Let us know. And once again, I appreciate everybody coming by here, sending me your tracks. Without you guys, this stream really isn't anything. So appreciate you guys being willing to share stuff you're working on. So next up, we got a track from King KY. What's up, Ema? I feel like I also haven't seen you for a while. How you been? Nice. I really dig this beat. I think it sounds really good to me. I honestly don't have a huge amount of feedback on it. Kick, snare, hat, drum beat all sounds really solid. Vibe-wise, the whole thing like has this very kind of like 90, to me it has like very kind of like 90s kind of instrumental hip-hop kind of vibe to it, which is fantastic. I thought the bass line was a really interesting, really kind of bold choice. That kind of like very kind of slapping acoustic bass, I don't think is necessarily what I would have done, but I think it works really well. It actually, I think, gives the track a lot of character, and I think it's a really awesome, like, stylistic avenue to go down that I think, like I said, I probably wouldn't have done. I think in terms of things you might want to take a look at, number one, I feel like the main kind of melodic sample is this very kind of like piano-y sounding that does get a little bit repetitive. And I think partially just because it's kind of like a pretty short sample. So I might, as the song kind of changes and progresses, either come up with more variations on it or maybe get rid of it for a little bit. It just feels like it's pretty constant throughout the whole track. Like it's still playing here. So yeah, I think a little bit of resampling on that sound, I think would go a long way to helping the whole thing fill itself out a little bit. Also, I love the weird kind of wind chime sound you have in the background. I think it's a fantastic choice, and I fully support that as being there. And then lastly, I feel like I know you're probably not putting any vocalists in here specifically because you want this to have a rapper on top of it. But I think like an old funk or soul vocalist, like a female vocalist, just being sampled and tossed in there would be fantastic. I think that would really be the icing on the cake and really help kind of round out the arrangement and the kind of like combinations of sounds you already have in there. But yeah, other than that, sounds really dope. Yeah, overall, really solid work here. Sweet. Chat, any other thoughts, questions, comments, ideas? Let us know. On top of that, if you want to send us a track, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat, and that's how you send me your song. And if you put it in right now, you'll be immediately after this next one. This is the last one we got in the spreadsheet right now. Get there. Sweet. So we got a track from Emo, who we haven't heard from in a while. So welcome back. We got a few people here who haven't been here in a while. It's good to have you guys.
Dance to the beat, dance electric, mach mich an, komm mit zu mir, ich zeig es dir, dance electric, mach mich an, komm mit zu mir, nimm mich ran, dance electric. Dance electric. Touch my body, dance to the beat, dance electric, mach mich an, komm mit zu mir, zeig es dir, dance electric, mach mich an, komm mit zu mir, nimm mich ran, dance electric, turn me on, make me feel so surreal, make me crazy, feel the heat.
Nice. That is very techno emo. I'm digging it. Pranav, if you want to send a track, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat, and that'll take you to the spreadsheet, and that's where you send me your track. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see you either like just jamming out to this like in your living room, just like playing with all your hardware, or like this being a club in Berlin at like 4 a.m. And I think, you know, to me, this shows a very clear understanding of the genres, the expectations of the genres, and it seems like you know what you're going for. I think in terms of giving feedback for it, in terms of like it being a jam session with a bunch of synths and drum machines, I do feel like you could dial back the vocal sample a bit. I love the vocal sample. I think the vocal sample works really well, but I think that it just does get a little repetitive over time. And I like that you had like weird points where you like dubbed it out, like right here. Like this little dubby version of it, like stuff like that works really well and helps keep it fresh. But I think just because the track is 6 minutes long and it's kind of like, it's just the same vocal phrase and kind of like slightly different combinations, I think feel like it does get a little repetitive. I love the bass line. Baseline works fantastically. If it were up to me, I probably would go a little bit grimier and a little bit heavier and maybe even a little bit louder with the baseline, just to really kind of like, I don't know, really drive it home, especially as it progresses. Maybe as the song kind of goes on, like the bass gets louder and grittier and more kind of driven. I think that'd be a cool way to help kind of like bring up the energy throughout the whole track. Other than that, I feel like a really, really straightforward melodic element in there, like a little arpeggiated synth, I think would really help kind of round out the whole thing. Because I think you don't have that much melodic going on. And I know this style doesn't necessarily need that much melodic going on, but I think like a really simple, really straightforward arpeggiated kind of sound, I think would help out quite a bit. Like you have like the little sonar pings in here. It's cool, but if we did more with that, if you arpeggiated it, I think that'd be awesome. Yeah, everything else, like I said, like it would fit in perfectly in like a weird warehouse party in the middle of the night, which is I feel is very much what you're going for. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking here. And I just like the way like it feels very natural. Like it feels like it's kind of like clipped out of like an hour-long set where just like this song kind of grows and changes and evolves, and it still very much is like that techno-driven kick through the whole thing. So I feel like this could go on for a very long time or be part of a larger piece and would fit in really well. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Super cool track. One of the things I've been trying to kind of focus on a little bit more in tracks I've been making and when I'm working with other people is like how you make something affects the outcome, like the process, like input versus output, right? Like how you input information, how you get information out. And it's cool to see a track like that where like the way you created it was different than just like sitting down at a DAW and just writing a bunch of stuff, but rather like sitting down and like recording yourself jamming out on synths gets you like a different output. So I think that's cool to like know about the track and then input that in there, or hear what the input is and then know what the input is and then hear what the output is. I think it's kind of interesting. All right, so next up we got a track from Vibekosh. Welcome. Also, just a quick reminder, if anybody's just joining us and you'd like to send in a track, you can click on the link pinned up at the top of the chat, and that's how you send me your track. And if you're enjoying the stream, if you're enjoying any of the feedback, feel free to hit that like button or any of that stuff as well. Nice. This is a super cool track. It reminds me a little bit of some like really old school glitch mob kind of vibe going on with it. It's kind of like hip hoppy kind of beat with the very kind of like synthy, cyberpunky kind of synth sounds on top of it. I got a few different thoughts and things you might want to take a look at if you are into it. So I'm gonna kind of just go through it chronologically. So first off, I do feel like the intro goes on for a little bit too long and doesn't really do a whole lot. Like, it sounds cool, but like not much happens until like 50 seconds in. So I would either add in 1 or 2 more layers in there to that part of the song, or maybe take like the percussive part out a little bit, and just kind of see what happens there. I feel like it sounds cool, but it's not grabbing my attention kind of the way I want it to. And then you got this guy coming in. This sounds really cool, but I think this is where one of your biggest issue lies. Number one, you're doing some really interesting things with your panning. It's kind of like sweeping around left and right. And I think it's a little bit too much, because you want this to be a big, like heavy, powerful part of the song. And when it's panning all over the place, it feels less powerful. So that's my first issue with it. I think some panning's okay, but I think right now it's going like all the way to one side to another side. And what we're losing when you do that is the power and impact of this sound. And I want this sound to be really impactful. The other thing that I think this track, or that this sound is missing, is that it feels like it's trying to be a bass sound, but it's not bassy enough. And I think if you add another layer 1 octave lower, it's gonna beef it up and make it sound much huger and much bassier, which I think will go really well with the big kind of like hip hoppy kind of beat you have going on there. So if you do those 2 things, if you tone down the panning, get a bass layer in there, the whole thing is gonna be much heavier, which is what I think you're going for in this style, in this song. So try those 2 things out, see if that makes any difference for you. Because right now I think it's a cool sound, but I need to hit really hard, and it's not quite there yet. I like the drum beat a lot. I think the reverb on the snare is a little heavy, but it's not a huge deal. This main melodic part could be a little bit louder. Also, I love the vocal sample here. Vocal sample's great. This part's cool. Let me get here. So it sounds like basically throughout the entire song, you have this very kind of like atmospheric background layer going on. You can hear it here, which I think is a cool layer. I think it sounds really cool. I think it's the same sound from the intro. However, over here, there's a lot of other really cool sounds that are happening, and I think this background kind of like noisy pad atmosphere sound is taking up a lot of attention from those things. And so up to me, I would either turn that sound way down during this section, or just totally get rid of it. Just cut it out from this section. And I think that'll create more space, which means all these sounds will be more impactful. And then same thing here. If that bass sound lands, then this whole section lands. So here it gets a little more bassy, and that's great. But it's still panning all over the place, and so it doesn't feel that impactful. Yeah, I think the ambient layer is cool, but I think negative space, removing those layers sometimes can be a really effective way to change the overall vibe of a song. But yeah, that's kind of my main feedback there. It mostly has to do with that one main kind of synth layer, and if you can beef that bad boy up, then the whole track is gonna feel much more impactful, and I think it'll sound really cool. I really dig this cover art too. It's really pretty dope. Maybe catch up with chat. Yeah, and I kind of agree with Precincts of Sound. I think the drums could be a little more gritty too, and I definitely wouldn't mind that. But yeah, overall, really solid work. It sounds really cool. I dig the style you're going for quite a bit. Sweet. So I think at this point, we are all caught up on the songs in the spreadsheet. So if you are just now joining us and would like to send me a track, now would be a really good time to do that. I'm definitely going to hang out for a little while longer and see if anybody else shows up who wants to share something. But I will, of course, be back on Monday for an office hours stream. And then on Tuesday, I do the Patreon stream. So if you're a Patreon member, I do an extra stream for those guys. And if you're not a Patreon member, you should consider signing up because it really helps support the channel. And then, of course, I will be back next week on Wednesday for another song feedback stream. But as always, I would like to thank all you guys for popping by, sending me your tracks, and helping each other out and giving each other feedback. Without you guys, the stream doesn't really exist and the channel doesn't really exist. So I am very grateful for you guys being around. And I've just like always been super impressed by the progress that all you guys have been making. Especially you guys have been coming back like pretty regularly to send me tracks or updated versions of tracks. It's super cool to see how people are growing just by like over time. It's really awesome. Awesome. I appreciate you guys. You guys are being so nice. The feedback streams are definitely like my favorite kind of stream because it's super cool to like, it's much more like it feels more interactive than some of the other streams. And it's cool to hear what you guys are working on. At some point, I don't know when and I don't know how, I would love to do a Catalyze like compilation and just get like, all right, people who have been regularly submitting tracks, get each one to submit a track and just release it, see what happens. I haven't thought about the details of how that might work, but I think it'd be cool. Long-term goals for the channel. I think it'd be really fun. Oh man, Jeff. Well, first off, I'm glad I could be helpful, but confidence and production or just like any artistic endeavor is, and self-esteem is like, to me, a huge thing that people don't talk about like at all. Like you're always your biggest critic, and I have seen more careers and artists be ruined by self-esteem issues or mental health issues than like anything else. So I'm glad I could be helpful, but I think that's something I think we should be aware of more, that like it's hard to make your own music and like pour your heart and soul into something that you love and then feel like all the ups and downs and trials and tribulations of being an artist and making things, I think are it's pretty wild. And I think it's crazy to me that people survive it. It's like it can be real brutal. Cool, awesome. Yeah, I'm super glad I could be helpful. But I think it's always important to, you know, be critical of your own work, but also like show acceptance and love for the things that you're making. That's one of the things I'm dealing with a little bit right now. I'm doing the song a week challenge, and I'm like 13 or 14 songs in, and some of them I love, and I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I made that in a week. And some of them like, yeah, I don't need to love this as much. This one, it's okay if the world doesn't see. And just like that's just part of it. Part of the game is you make lots and lots of things, and some things work, some things don't work as well. Sweet. So at this point, I'm still not got any other tracks in the spreadsheet, so I think we're gonna kind of start to wind things down. So once again, thanks to you guys for sending me tracks. Love to hear them. They're fantastic. Also, I also want to point out that like if you guys submit a track and you get some feedback on it, and then you go work on it, and then the next week you want to submit it again to get more feedback on it after you've made changes, that's not only accepted, but that's also encouraged. Like you're more than welcome to do that. Yeah, the thing I'm working on right now is just like, no matter what I'm making, whatever style it is or whatever, it's just like the goal is to express myself. That's it. That's the only thing I should be thinking about is like, how can I best express the things I'm thinking and feeling through my music? It's not about like how perfect the sound design is or how good the mixing is or how good the mastering is. It's like, is this expressing something that I'm feeling? If so, it's a success. If it's not, then it's not a success. Jay, that's a really fantastic question. I tend to stay kind of far away from mainstream artists a lot. I just tend to like more underground stuff. Not there's anything wrong with listening to or liking mainstream music. I have to say of people that I think are doing it really well in sorry, Emma, Nightbot got you. Doing well in the more kind of like mainstream world that I think are just ridiculously talented. Flume is probably like the most mainstream of the artists that I feel like I really have been digging their stuff. Apache is another one. Apache's doing really well, and his stuff is amazing. Igloo Ghost is another guy who I really respect, also not mainstream, but I think his production stuff is absolutely wild. He's a genius. And then Lorne is probably like my favorite producer of all time. If you haven't checked out Lorne, Lorn, amazing work. Alex, absolutely. So if you are interested in booking a private, you can do so through the Catalyze website. I think it's just catalyzemusicacademy.com. If you're not sure if you want to book one or not, you can also book a free consultation for like 20 minutes through Zoom, and we can talk about what you're looking to do and how I can help you out with that. But all that is done through the website. So, Jeff, that's a really fantastic question. So his question is basically having trouble getting that like club vibe, getting maximum loudness while keeping dynamic range in the sweet spot. How do I nail that kick-bass relationship? I think a lot of it, to me, comes down to mixing and getting rid of anything that is taking up space that your kick or your bass otherwise would occupy, right? So when I think about mixing, I think about, all your sounds are competing, right? So a sound in the 500 hertz frequency range is competing with other sounds also in the 500 hertz frequency range, right? And sounds in the 100 hertz frequency range are competing with other sounds also in the 100 hertz frequency range, right? And the competition at the low end is really, really stiff. So any unwanted low frequencies are then competing with your kick and your bass, right? And your kick and bass are obviously competing with each other. So I found that getting rid of anything that's not necessary clears up more space for your sounds you want to be heard, right? And so I think that's a big part of it for me. And then a lot of it is just like controlling your sound with volumes. And I've talked about this before when I talk about mixing, and kind of like, if you want something to be more present in the mix, just make it louder. If you want something to be less present in the mix, just make it quieter. So I think a lot of it comes down to, especially for the music you're making, Janef, the three things you need to be loud and clear are your kick, your bass, and your vocals, right? The vocals are competing with everything else in the vocal range, not so much with the kick and the bass. And the kick and bass are competing with each other. But in a lot of situations, just making sure that those sounds you want to be extra clear, the sounds you want to really be heard in the club, they're just super loud in the mix, and that makes such a huge difference. And it might sound a little strange because you're going to be turning down a lot of the other sounds, but it'll come through in the mix when you hear it on big speakers. Kind of speaking of big speakers, kind of along the same lines, big like club speakers will sound different than your headphones, which will sound different than your earbuds, which will sound different than your monitor speakers at home, which will sound different than your car. So one of the best things you can do, and this is like, it's really annoying, but it's really useful, is check your mixes on club speakers. It's one of the best reasons to get out there and perform live. Like, go to a club, get on stage, plug your stuff in, play your track, and then listen to it, see how it sounds. Because they're going to sound very different. And so you might find that you actually are closer to getting that club sound when you play your song in a club, or you might find you're actually getting farther away from that club sound when you test your stuff out in a club. So the club test is really, really helpful. And if you're not playing, and your friend's DJing, maybe hand off your track to your friend and see if they'll play it in a set, and that way you can sit in the audience, so you can hear how it sounds, because it will, the speakers, the room, all that stuff makes a big difference. And it's really hard to tell sometimes until you have a lot of practice with it, how your track's going to sound on club speakers versus how it's going to track, or how it's going to sound on your home speakers. So yeah, I think those are just a couple things to think about, consider if you're trying to get that low end dynamics in the place where you really want it. But it's complicated. It takes a long time really to kind of figure it out for yourself and develop your ear for it. Sweet. So yeah, I think that's going to be it for today. Like I said, I'll be back on Monday for an office hours stream. And thank you guys for popping by. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Work on some new music, and I will see you guys next week. Have a good one.